All right, members, the bill we'll be hearing next is House File 3009, regulating the use of unmanned aerial vehicles by law enforcement agencies. Chair Lesch, would you like to move this bill?
I would, Madam Chair.
Okay, Chair Lesch moves that House File 3009 be placed on the general register. And I believe, Mr. Chair, that you have an amendment.
I do, Madam Chair. The A1, and I am adding that the reports that need to be turned into the legislature to be reported to committees or divisions, I'm adding a comma for clarity.
Okay, and it is my understanding that the amendment was posted late, but the authors discussed it with Mr. Scott, and there's no objection. Is that correct?
What did you get out of it?
I think so, Madam Chair.
Scott?
That's correct.
Yes, okay.
That's correct.
Thank you. Does everyone have a copy of the amendment? Any discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. And Chair Lesch, go ahead and tell us about your bill, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, UAVs, commonly referred to as drones, this has been an issue that's been in the air for years. I'm a dad, so I get to do dad jokes. Or I could have said it's been buzzing around too, but. So I used to fly UAVs as part of my job in the military, and it was rather interesting. There were different sizes they had of them, and now, years later, of course, they have much smaller ones for use and accessible by the private market as well as by law enforcement. They present unique capabilities to surveil people, and right now in Minnesota, there are no rules or laws whatsoever about how they're used, no state rules. So this bill changes that, and it requires that law enforcement secure a warrant before using a drone, subject to certain defined exceptions. There are legitimate public safety reasons to use these UAVs, as we've all discussed: a missing child, a natural disaster, or a car crash, reconstruction, as well as pragmatic reasons such as training. These reasons, with law enforcement's input, have been written into this bill in subdivision 3 as exceptions to the warrant requirement. However, there are also important guardrails for law enforcement's use. No facial recognition technology, no weapons, and reporting and notice requirements. So this bill has been in the works for years, and like I said, this committee tackles, I guess, looming issues in data collection every few years, and it seems like the UAV question has always gotten bogged down when we were having to tackle major issues like cell phone exploitation devices or license plate readers or body cams, and so we didn't get to this, and it was always on the cusp every year, but this year we're getting to it, and we got a deal, and I'd like to thank the ACLU and law enforcement and the other stakeholders for their discussions in the interim and their work in the subcommittee on data practices. So we have the bill before you, and I think the ACLU is testifying.
Yeah. Come on forward. Ms. Decker, please introduce yourself, and you can begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair and members, my name is Julia Decker. I'm the Policy Director for the ACLU of Minnesota. As Chair Lesch has alluded to, this bill before you is the result of a number of years of work and negotiation with law enforcement stakeholders, including over the interim. So as some of you may recall, the ACLU started out in a much different place on this issue, had more stringent requirements for law enforcement and fewer exceptions from getting a warrant. Now, law enforcement has testified in past hearings about the many powerful public safety uses of drones. And through numerous discussions around this issue, we've agreed to compromise to include some of those uses as additional exceptions to the warrant requirement. Nevertheless, it is essential to have guidelines and guardrails for drone use by law enforcement, and HF 3009 imposes much needed limits where there currently are none. And we acknowledge there's been testimony and commentary in past hearings that argued this bill doesn't go far enough. But right now, there is no state law regulating law enforcement use of drones, whether it's for locating a missing child or secretly surveilling somebody just going about their everyday life. It takes one Google search to see how rapidly drone use by law enforcement agencies is proliferating. And so this bill fills a gaping void in the current state law. ACLU of Minnesota supports this bill while remaining wary of and watchful for the proliferation of new and ever more powerful technologies that can present additional threats to privacy rights and civil liberties. So thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Decker. And I think there's at least one more person who wants to testify, and then we'll have questions after that. So thank you. Is there someone else from the audience who wishes to testify? I think it's Cass Wieland. Yep, come on down. Hi, welcome. Please introduce yourself and you can begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Cass Wayland. I am a member of Restore the Fourth Minnesota, and I am a cybersecurity consultant and penetration tester. Like the ACLU, I support this bill because there really isn't anything on the books right now regulating drone use. And when you're in the technology field and when you understand the inherent risks involved in in these kinds of systems, then you have to understand that we need more regulation about this technology, especially when it can, especially when you consider the risks of it being misused and abused by not only law enforcement but by criminals as well. I feel like there are a couple things that could make the bill stronger, or that can maybe be addressed at in another bill. Most of it has to do with under Subdivision 4, the Part B, the governing body overseeing the law enforcement agency must approve the agency's acquisition. That's great. What I would love to see is I would love to see something else that says that they have to have like a public meeting that includes, you mentioned in other places of the bill that they have to have documentation about how it's used and rules regarding how the technology is used. I'd like to see it, I would like to see a requirement that says you got to have a public meeting and you have to solicit public input regarding that decision. What I would worry about is that the oversight body just approves it without soliciting any public input from the constituency that it's affecting. So stronger language there would make me very happy. Otherwise, some of the exemptions that are listed under the warrant, some of the exemptions under the warrants have me worried. Like, you have language later in the bill that talks about how you can't use it for protests, but one of the exemptions for warrants says that if it's I think it was number 2, over a public event where there's a heightened risk of safety of the participants, that's essentially every protest that I've been to. So I don't see how so yeah, some of the exemptions under the authorized use part could probably be pruned or changed, because I feel like it took me a little bit to think of a situation where there wouldn't be an exemption and where they would be required to get a warrant, and they can use it if they have reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. It makes, you mentioned that it can be used for search and rescue after, yeah, I agree. There's a lot of great ways that this technology can be used, but the number of exemptions here is a little bit worrying, but it is better than nothing. One last thing is I would like to see some more, perhaps not in this bill, but another bill, I'd like to see some requirements surrounding security audits and making sure that the technology itself is using robust cybersecurity protocols.
All right, thank you so much. I think we'll do questions from members right now. Chair Considine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm a little unclear, and I just want some clarification. It says a drone can go over public area. Can they go over my property with a camera for any reason without a warrant?
Chair Lesh.
Why don't I have research explain that specifically? I think it'd be better, more credible, since I'm the bill author.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members, so as written, what the bill says is that they can only go over public areas without a warrant. There may be some question down the road about whether a public area includes an area that is a certain level in the air above a facility. There is Supreme Court case law related to surveillance airplanes and the use of those airplanes. However, these drones also have to comply with restrictions regarding how high they're allowed to operate. To be perfectly frank, I don't know where those lines are drawn currently, so I can't say if there is any gray area where they would be permitted to operate under that Supreme Court case law.
Chair Constantine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as I understand this, they could go down the alley behind my house, surveying on either side things that are going, the neighborhood barbecue, or and there would not be restrictions on that. Would that be?
Mr. Johnson.
Madam Chair and Representative Constantine, so the bill as drafted essentially requires a warrant as the initial step. In order for law enforcement to not use a warrant, it must fall under one of these authorized exceptions, which appears in subdivision 3. So simply going down an alley with no other justification that's under one of these subdivisions would not be permitted use. If going down that alley involved, let's say, conducting a threat assessment in anticipation of a specific event, which is clause 5, then it could go down that alley. But simply to go down on what you might term a fishing expedition would not be permitted.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. I feel a lot better about the bill, and thank you to the authors for trying to fill this gap.
Representative Johnson.
Madam Chair, Chair Lesh, I have just one little question and then a comment after the question's answered. One thing that the operators of these things need to do a lot of, and I don't think that's covered in your bill in the reporting section, is training. They got to practice with them. They might look easy to fly, but to fly them properly and do the recording, they have to do quite a bit of practice with them. And I'm trying to recall what in Lexi Poole's policy that most of the sheriff's office has, what the policy is on the drone. I got to go look it up when I get done with this committee. But with the reporting, is every time that they go out and practice to make sure they can operate it safely and properly, do they have to report those as well?
Well,
Chair Lesh.
if I could have research speak to that too as well, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson.
Madam Chair, Representative Johnson, there is an exception for operating over a public area for officer training. That's in clause 8. Was that the heart of your question?
2.2 million.
Yes, that was the heart of my question. I was just more getting it on the record to make sure that people knew that they can operate these without having to report and have it on the record.
Yep, Chair Scott.
Madam, just still had another comment yet?
Oh, so sorry. Go ahead.
Chair Lesh, I want to thank you for bringing this. I started this process back in 2013 when I first got here. We've had a number of bills since then from way up on both sides, from far what I would call radicals, so you basically could never use a unmanned aerial vehicle, to being able to use it all the time. This started when I got here, first elected. So I was working as a deputy sheriff, and I had one of my co-employees make the comment that he can't wait till we have drones so he can sit in the office to patrol. And I knew that was wrong, and that's why I started this whole process.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Chair Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Chair Lesh, thanks for bringing the bill. I'm happy with it, and I don't know how this kind of escaped the Data Commission and stuff, but we don't have role-based access, we don't have audit trail requirements in this. Now, I understand, the length of time, they're saying, get rid of the data within 7 days unless it's investigative data. So that gives me some comfort, but I'm just wondering if we might be able to add, our standard operating procedure, our standard operating language with data stuff, and adding role-based access and audit trails being created as the data is looked at. So just wondering if you're amenable to that
Chair Lesh.
or looking into it.
Madam Chair and Chair Scott, yes, I am amenable. And if you could maybe prepare an amendment for, where's this going again, Madam Chair? Is this going
I
to
think
the
it's going
floor?
straight to the general register.
Okay, so you want to prepare an amendment? I'll take it as a friendly amendment on the floor, that same standard language that we use.
And
Chair Scott.
thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Chair Lesh. And hopefully that's okay with the parties that negotiated this too. I think they've kind of become accustomed to that sort of language, but hopefully they would be amenable to that as well.
Chair
Thank you, Madam Chair and Chair Scott. Yes, I think so. I mean, I'm sure the departments don't like doing those audit reports, but since they're already doing them, they just have to hit send once, right? So we can talk to them about that, though. Hopefully they can have the conversation with you about that as well.
Great. Thank you.
Chair Liebling.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Chair Lesh, thank you for doing this. I'm glad we're moving in this direction. I have just a quick question and then a comment. So the question is, what about what this gentleman brought up about having a meeting that could be open to the public? Is that something that's been considered? Is that not practical, or is that something we could change?
Well, Madam
Chair
Chair and Chair Liebling, I like it. I think it's a good idea. What I will tell you is that this bill language is the product of a compromise. It does not go as far as my original bill, what I would have preferred. But I appreciate the concessions that each side made in order to get to this. And so we have what we have, and half a loaf is better than one. When I first got elected here, I was swinging for the bleachers all the time, and now I like a good base hit. So I think we got an excellent base hit here that we can build off of as we see how things develop.
Chair
Yeah.
Liebling.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Chair Lesh. I understand that, how hard this can be sometimes, and I'm glad we're getting started here. My comment, I don't know if any of you went, there was a continuing legal education at the Capitol on Friday, and Justice Thiessen talked about how courts interpret statutory language. It was extremely interesting, and it really made me think about, you were there, right, Chair Mueller? You
I
were
missed
there.
that portion
You
of
missed
it,
that
but-
part. Well, yeah, and so I think what we're doing here, clearly sometimes the legislature is leaving things vague on purpose because we can't reach a compromise on certain things. This strikes me as a very good piece of legislation to get us started, but I see a lot of litigation in its future. And the courts are going to have to, unless we at some point tighten up some of it, the courts are going to have to do it. And, part of Justice Thiessen's point from his experience both as a legislator and as a judge is that judges oftentimes have sort of an unrealistic view of the legislature and what legislative intent is, and they imagine a sort of a fantasy legislature instead of understanding kind of how the sausage gets made. And one thing he suggested is keep your notes from a bill when you've worked on a bill and turn them into the legislative law library for safekeeping so that later on courts have something to refer to. But I'm sure they'll be looking back at this hearing too to kind of see how we wrestle with some of these issues. But thank you very much.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, in light of the judges listening in, I just want to say for the record, I love judges. I think they're great. and I would note that in terms of what the courts say and what Justice Thiessen says, and he and I came in together in 2002, and he sat next to me for 4 years on the House floor and used to use a red felt tip and move his papers like this. And I have marks down my sleeves from his red felt tip as he's going through papers and marking. But I would note, Chair Liebling, that almost every year since 2010, the courts have either struck down or modified a bill that I have written, and I have in turn, through legislation, overruled a court action. Almost every year. So there will continue to be this back and forth about what they think we have to do and what we decide they think they have to do. And this may be one of them as well, but I think that's how we get to good policy in the end.
Representative Knorr.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chair Lesh, for bringing this bill forward. And I see that you excluded the facial recognition from this process, But I just wanted to ask about the request for data by individuals who are impacted by this bill. If they wanted to see that information, what is going to be the process? Are they going to be waiting for how long? Do we have a timeline if I request the data from the law enforcement in order for me to receive that data?
Well, my first answer would be it follows the rest of Chapter 13 on data practices with the exceptions carved in for the 7 days here, but maybe I could ask if research could, again, go into the process for that.
Mr. Johnson.
Madam Chair and Representative Noor, Representative Lesh is correct. Essentially, the data is supposed to be destroyed within 7 days unless it's being used for a law enforcement purpose. If it's being used for a law enforcement purpose, it would get categorized as law enforcement data and be subject to the provisions of Chapter 13 related to law enforcement data. In essence, that data, this is a short version, but can be held by the law enforcement agency until the investigation is complete. If you need more detail on that provision, I'm happy to go into that section of the chapter another time.
Any other member questions? Was there any other testimony from the public? All right, seeing none and no further discussion of the bill, I move that House File 3009 as amended be recommended to be placed on the general register. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion prevails. And House File 3009 as amended is recommended to be placed on the general register.